So someone might say, "Oh, I want us to kind of break down wants versus needs."
Mm.
Someone might say, "Oh, I need a car,"
Wow.
or someone might say, "Oh, I need a house."
Wow.
But there's a yardstick. There are theories out there, that states what needs really are.
Mm.
Can you highlight what, like differentiate needs versus wants to
Okay.
put things into perspective? I know there is one of those theories, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the yardstick that you can use. So you can you just can't say, "Oh, I need a car."
Yeah.
Every maybe what I need. Basically, there's needs for everyone. Like there's that baseline
Wow.
for every individual overall,
Wow.
right? So break down for us needs versus wants.
Okay.
Because when it comes to budgeting,
Mm.
those our needs is what you prioritize
Yeah.
over wants.
Wow.
So I'll let you speak on
Okay.
that.
So basically, taking a cue from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what Maslow in his theory stated is true about the basic human needs: need for food, shelter, clothing, security, a house, love, acceptance, self-esteem, then self-actualization. All of those in that hierarchy, are needs of the human being, right? We all have a need to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a need, to actualize our dreams, our goals. So breaking it down in simple terms for us, I need to state here as well that, my need may not be a need for you, right? So it's individual specific, and there's no one size fits all. There was a presentation I had recently with some folks, and on one of the slides, we're throwing up some items, and we're arguing whether those items are needs or wants, right? So basically, for example, maybe I'm into a business where I use a cell phone to, run my business, or for my business to be successful, right? And I need the state-of-the-art, Apple device, for example. So in my own scenario, having that would be a need, maybe the latest Apple device. But for someone else, that may be a want, but it's the same item, right? So first of all, you need to understand what applies to you, because I always tell people that there's no two financial journey that is the same, not even for married couples. So what is categorized as a need for one person is different from the other. Now, we're talking about, basic things that is required for your existence: food, shelter, clothing. All those are needs, right? And now, for clothing, let's even start with clothing first of all. Basically, why do people wear clothes? It's to feel comfortable. We live in North America, and we know how cold the weather can be sometimes during winter, right? So you need something to keep you warm. Now, for the purpose of this presentation, I'm not going to mention brands, but you and I know that there are some, the basic need at this point to stay warm during winter is required. But again, we know that there are some high-end brands that, sell the same item that you could get at a reasonable price, in a decent, for a decent brand, right? And both of them are actually performing the same duty, keeping you warm. So why would someone, spend so much for something that they probably may not be able to afford just because they want to, for other personal reasons, maybe self-esteem reasons, instead of saving money on that same item on something that on a decent brand that will work, than something that is on a high end expensive, right? So in that regard, the conversation or the argument between needs and what comes in for the same item, right? So I would just say it depends on the individual and what is required for their daily existence and survival. That would count as needs. Then wants is something that you can actually live without. Right? So I always tell people that, do you know that whenever the banks are trying to qualify you for a mortgage, cell phone bills is not classified as a need when they are qualifying you when it comes to calculating your debt service ratio and all of that, because in their mind You can actually exist without a phone bill, or without using a phone, right? But for some people in our day and age, we of course require phones to communicate and stay in touch. But I'm just trying to discuss and bring this to limelight, that what may be a need for someone might not be a need for the next person.
Well, really good. At the end of the day, you have to figure out as an individual what your needs versus your wants are. But keeping in mind, you have to look at your financial situation as well.
Exactly.
Right? Because that other friend or family, they might have more resources than you.
True.
So you just have to figure out, manage your resources as much as possible to take care of your, the analogy that you did about wearing clothes, right?
Yeah.
Determine the brand that will fit your budget.
Your budget, exactly.
Compared to what somebody else is doing.
Wow.
Really good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That. All right. So some budgeting, you've already highlighting them. Any additional budgeting tips for us? And what do you determine as a good, I don't know how I should put it. How should you go about budgeting, like in summary? Because you've already highlighted some of them. And what budgeting tools would you recommend for our viewers out there? Because that's one thing I'm always struggling with, right? Because if you list all of your, expenses, right, they might be running like more than 10. And of course, we can do the longhand math calculator. But yeah, you have experience. So what budgeting tools out there, whether not to really zero down on any specific brand or company, but what would you recommend to our viewers out there? Budgeting tips and budgeting tools, like the basics.
Okay. So for the budgeting tips, what I would advise people is to have some level of trust in professionals. So basically, coming from Nigeria, West Africa, we try as much as possible to be jack of all trades, and sometimes we're not master of all of them. And we try to do stuff ourselves just to make sure that, okay, we're kind of like efficient with limited resources. We do a lot of research and all of that, which is good. So I believe coming to Canada, I had to do like some mind shift on certain things where, there are people that are specialists at what they do. You have, professionals in different industries. So having a trusted advisor, first of all, where you can ask, questions, and they will be able to give you some insights from their own wealth of experience is very key. And also, reading and finding things out. One thing I notice with people is that most of the time, especially people within our community, most people are very quick to, exchange value that they're expecting from another party, exchange the value for money. Like they're fast to give money away. Like if they want someone to do something for them, and they're quick to, without doing so much research about, the subject and, the individual you are engaging with. So it's something that we need to, look at very critically. And when it comes to budgeting as well, you mentioned that sometimes the expenses might be so much. The first thing is for you to even know what those expenses are, right? And one very good way to know is just to, take a sneak peek into your statement, be it your credit card statement or your banking statement, where you swipe those cards, where you make those purchases. That will give you an idea of what your expenses are. We know the minimum, the basic expenses, which is utilities, rent, mortgage, all of that. But there are sometimes that you make some purchases in the grocery store. So you need to, first of all, know where you're spending your money.
Right.
That way you are able to now determine, okay, these are the bucket of expenses that you incur.
Right.
And if you're trying to do this over time, and because again, cutting a budget is not just a one-time activity you just do and go to sleep. It's not like a one size fits all. So every now and then you have to revise your budgets, review it to make sure it's in line with the realities. My wife and I had a budget when we started off this year, and trust me, the way prices of things have changed, our budget is no more realistic if we're working on what we're doing in January.
Right.
So it's something to always revisit. Like I said, the first step is to outline what your expenses are. Then if you have the time, like I said, it's always the first step. The first time you're doing that budget, that is the main work, because you're trying to create a structure for yourself that will guide you going forward. So if it's not something you've done before, or you've probably done a crappy job in the past, then you'd have to give it some time and be honest to yourself. If you want to really make some progress in this, outline those aspects that you're spending money on, then look at what you spend on an average over a period of time. Or if, for example, you don't want to go through all of that work, you could just assign something realistic with what you think you would be spending. Then, like I said, as much as you are reviewing budget, like maybe monthly or periodically, then you can make those adjustments into what is realistic. Then when you're talking about the tools, I usually start off by telling people a simple Excel sheet can, help you get started first.
Okay.
Because even though you want to go sophisticated and download an app from the App Store, you first of all have to understand how the numbers work.
Right.
And if you don't have a basic understanding of how the numbers work, then you will not get the value from those applications. And there are a lot of applications on the Play Store, free applications. I would always encourage people to start off with free applications, free trials. Set an alarm when the trial ends is very, very important, so that you don't get dinged. And as you do this very often, you get very comfortable. And like I said at the beginning, talking about money can be very uncomfortable, even between married couples, right? But the truth is, the moment you are able to have a frank conversation with your spouse or people that you care about with regards to your finance, then the right expectation is set. There's less stress in the relationship, and everybody understands what's going on per time.
Wow, that's really good. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So basically, I hear structure, and you have to spend some time, look at your bank statement, look at your credit card. I mean, you might know all your basic needs like utilities and all of that, but kind of like find a pattern of how you're spending your money, and then you could decide, is this a want or is this a need?
Gotcha.
So once you identify that, that's basically the first step in starting, to work on that budget, right? And then in terms of tools, go easy, go simple, understand, take the time to learn what, like you might see trends on your financial statements. Maybe look into those trends and see where you can make those adjustments. That's what I hear.
True.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.